In this video, I'm going to explain you how to use sys.arg to create simple Python programs that can be run with command line arguments and flags. So you definitely have already seen programs where you specify arguments directly when you run the program. So something like, I don't know, Python program.py, and then the file name .txt, I don't know, something like that, or maybe you add something like a flag or whatever. But how can you actually do this with Python? Today I'm going to teach you a simple way that I usually use when it comes to little programs that don't need to be super fancy. I'll also teach you a more complex way in another video, and I'll leave the link in the description. I'll definitely learn both ways because they are both used, and then once you know both of them, you can decide which one to use according to the program you're building. So first of all, you need to import sys like this, okay? And when you pass arguments after the program's name, they are stored somewhere. Let's see where. So let's print sys.argv like that. Let's actually try to run it with an argument. So Python program, the name of my program, and then arg like that. As you can see, you get a list with the first element being the name of the program and the second element being the argument. Of course, if I wrote another argument here, you would have it there as well. So let's say that we want a program that does different things if you use one argument or the other. So let's define two functions. Let's define a function, one that prints first function like that. And also let's define function 2, second function like that. And let's also say that we can just have one argument at a time, okay? And we can check the length, but first we need to get the arguments. So arguments like that, and then the slice. Here I'm using the slice. I'm not using just like something like one, something like that. I'm using the slice to get just the arguments. So I'm not getting the name of the program, of course, and I'm actually using slicing, as I said, instead of just getting the argument by doing something like that, because I want to be able to warn the user when they enter too many arguments. So now we can check the length of this list, okay, of this slice, and if this is not equal to 1, then we can warn the user and do something like error. It's actually use an f string, 1 argument, and then here we can do something pretty cool. So length given, I don't know, something like that. And then of course we need to exit like this. If we try to run that, we can see that if you've got just one argument, that's fine. If you've got two, you get the error, okay, with 2 given. And now we can assign the argument, the first argument, which is the one that we actually want to use because we just want to allow one argument. We can assign it to a new variable. You could have used sys.argv, etc. directly, but I'm just going to do this for the sake of clarity. Argument 0, because we just have one argument. And then we can check if the argument is valid. So if argument is equal to, let's say, f, or argument is equal to first, then we can use the function 1 like that. Of course, here I could have used a tuple, so something like if argument in and then the tuple containing the string f and the string first, basically the two values, and that would have been the same exact thing. And then if the argument is equal to s, or argument is equal to second, then we want to call function 2 like that. Else, that means that we want to allow f as first, second, but we don't want to allow any other value. So else, we just print an error, and we just do something like a string error like that, and then we can do something like argument not available like this. Let's actually try to see what we get. Okay, so let's run it with error are not available, s, second function, f, and also first. Let's actually try just one, first function. Okay, everything is working as expected, and you're also validating if the argument is that. So this is the most basic program you can make. So let's now see how we can make a program where you can actually enter one option followed by the file name, for example. So if you want to do something to the file name, etc., etc. And let's actually do something like this. I'm gonna delete this like that. I'm going to change slightly the functions like that, and just going to print file, and then same thing here like this. Here I'm leaving this because that's fine, but in this case I want two arguments. Okay, I want one option and the file name. So here we can change this. You can change it slightly, arguments, expected, given, etc. Now we've checked the length and we can actually get the option, because we know that we just have one option and the option is the first one, and then we get the file name. We know that this is the second. Of course, this wouldn't work if you write the file name before the option, etc. But you, of course, need to specify this in the documentation of your program. Okay, you need to specify how you need to use the options, where, etc., etc. And here we can do something like, I don't know, if option is equal to f. I'm not going to use first, but you know that you can do or option is equal to first, etc., etc., whatever you want. Function 1. And we use the file name like that, and then if elif option equal to s, then you call function 2 with the file name, and as we did earlier, print error, option not available. I didn't use an f string this time, but whatever. And in this case, the options either F or S are required, otherwise the program wouldn't work. So let's actually try to run this and see if everything works as expected. So you've got F and then file.txt, first function file.txt, and then S, of course, this does that. If you don't use any error, 2 arguments expected, 1 given. And if you use an option that is not available, T, error option not available. Okay, everything is working. So in this case, the file name and the option are required, but let's say that you want to be able to sort of chain more than one option, because in this case, you can just enter F or S. But what if you want to enter F and S to do different things, maybe? You can actually do this with a for loop, and let's see how we can do this. So this is a little bit more complex. So let's delete this. Let's actually go back to our function without any file like that, and we still get the arguments, and here we are checking if the length is less than 1, because we don't have a specific number. Okay, we can have as many arguments as we want, and of course they need to be valid arguments, and we need at least 1. So we need F or S, or maybe F and S, etc. So here we need to write something like at least 1 argument expected. In this case, we don't have the file name, we just have an option like we run the program with program.py fs or program.py f just f, etc. So we don't have the file name in this case. This is another program altogether. And here we can check if the arguments are all correct, are all valid. So we loop through them. In arguments, if arg not in, use a tuple, so f S, okay, you could have used F, S, first, second, etc. If the argument is not in here, you print not available. Okay, we just need 1 argument, 1 invalid argument to get the error and exit the program. So if all the arguments are valid, we can actually do what we want to do. So for arg in arguments, do something like if arg is equal to f function 1, elif is equal to s, do something else like this. And of course, in this case, we can chain the arguments. So program, we can use, let's say e f s. You can see error, you just get 1 error like that. But if you enter just f, you get first function, s, second function, s and f, second function, first function. Of course, the order is important because, as you can see, you get the second function and then first function, okay? Because you've got S and F and not F and S. You can do different things at the same time without running just Python program.py S and then Python program.py F. You can just run it with more options like that. So in this case, at least one argument is required, so they can't be really called options, or rather one is required and one is an option. So I'm just treating them as positional arguments, okay, because you need at least one of them. And for this reason, I'm just writing them without hyphens. But you can also create something with really optional arguments, which usually start with a hyphen. Let's say that you always need to provide a file name, which is the required positional argument. And you can then use different flags to signal that you want to do one operation or the other. And if you don't use flags at all, you still do something to the file. So let's do this, okay. So let's remove this and have one function, two functions, three functions like this, three. And here, file, okay, we expect a file, but we're not going to use it. Of course, you should use it if you are building something. And here we specify which option actually calls this function, basically. Only file name, I don't know, something like that. And here we need to try to get the file name first, because of course here you've got also the name of the program. This 0 is the name of the program. Why am I trying that? I'm trying this because if you don't enter any file name, so if you run just the program.py without any argument, you will get an error because this wouldn't be valid, because you wouldn't have the first argument, and this would throw an error. So I'm catching it like that, and then I print the error. File name inspected, and I exit as usual, like that. And now we can get the options. In this case, I'm using 2 as the first index because, of course, the first is the file name. I'm not using try and except here because this list just returns an empty list if you don't use the right indexes. So in this case, we're assuming that the first argument is the file name and then the options, because otherwise it's a little more complicated because you can have different numbers of options and it would be difficult to know which one is the file name. Because if you have something like python.py and then fg8 file.txt, how do you know that you've got 3 options? You could have like 2, etc., etc. So if you put the file name first and then the options, that's so much better because you know that the first element is the file name. As I said before, you need to make this clear to the user in the documentation of your program. Of course, you could still do it with the options first. You could check if there is the hyphen or not, whatever, but why make things harder? So if there is a file name, we can check if we have options. So if options, like that. And if we have options, we can check if the arguments entered are all correct. So we look through the options for option in options, like that. If option not in. And here the tuple with our options, so F, then first, S, second. As you can see, I've used 1 hyphen for the short form command and 2 hyphens for the long form name of the argument of the option. This is basically the convention. And if the option entered, one of the options entered is not in here, that means that the user entered something wrong. So we're telling them, look, option not available. And as usual, we exit gracefully, like that. If we go through this, that means that all the options are valid. So we can actually do what we want to do with the option, like that. And if option is equal to F or option is equal to first, we call a little function 1 with the file name, like that. If the option is equal to S, oh, actually, I forgot the hyphen there, okay, or option is equal to second, like that, we call function 2 with the file name that we got up here, okay. Of course, here I could have written something like if option in and then a tuple containing f and first and then s and second. That is the same thing, okay? Here I'm going through the options twice. As you can see, I'm going through the options here and then again here. But this is necessary because I first want to check all the options before running the code, okay? Otherwise, maybe the last option doesn't exist and the code of the other two is run anyway, and then the error message is shown. You will get the result of function 1, maybe the result of function 2, and then you will get the error because the last option is not available, maybe. This is really, really quick and fast, so there's no need to worry if you need to look through them twice. And down here, if you don't have options, as you can see, if option, else, okay, so if you don't have options, you still need to run function 3, which is the code to run if you don't have options. You just wrote the file name and you just need to do something, the default action, basically, all right? So let's actually save that and try to run it and see what we actually get. Python program.py, and then you can write something like file.txt and then f. Oh, there's a problem on line 26. Let's see what we get here. All right, of course. Why did I do that? I don't really know, but whatever. Let me tell you this, you are gonna run into things like that all the time, so don't worry about it. That's completely fine. All right, so F, then S, then let's try, oh, 2 hyphens, that, S and S. All right, I've run 2 S's. And of course, if you run this without anything, only file name, and if you run it with the wrong option, error P not available, okay? And let me give you another really cool example, which is kind of more complex. Let's say that the S option, the second option, can only be used in combination with the F option. So if you don't have the F option, you cannot use the S option. Let me show you what we want to achieve. So let's clear this like that. So here, this is the same, all the same thing. And here we're just changing this slightly. So we want to achieve something like this, and then we're gonna do that with the code. So if we run python program.py file.txt, okay, let's actually do something like that. Function 3. If we use the F flag, we want to run function 2. This is actually a good thing to do if you need to define what you need to do, etc. This could be a good way to do that. And then you want, if you use just S, you want to requires F, and then you exit, okay? So this is not possible. And here you can use F and S like that. Function 1 like that. So basically, if you use just the F flag, you run function 2. If you use the S flag, this is not possible and you exit. If you use F and S, you run function 1. And I'm going to show you what I mean. So let's go back here. Let's actually delete this. Let's go back here. So we check if all the options are available or not. Then we can do something like if. That's really important to use parentheses here. Otherwise, that wouldn't work because one thing would be evaluated first, etc., etc. So in this case, use parentheses. So in options or first in options. So if you have the F or first in the options and S in options or second in options, like that. So basically here we are checking if you've got the F and if you've got the S or second. If I didn't use the parentheses like this, and this here would have been evaluated first because you've got the and. So you need to write parentheses. Let's go back like that. So in this case, if you've got both of them, so it could be F and S, F and second, first and S, etc., whatever. So we need to run function 1 with the file name like this. By the way, if you're enjoying the video, please give it a like to let me know and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Then down here, after this check, you can do something like lift F in options, or first options, because here we've already checked if the options are available, and here we've already checked if you've got both the F and the S. So now you can just have the F. In this case, if you just have the F, you can run function 2, okay, with the file name. Here you can write else, because you've just checked if you've got both, if you've got just the F. So the last one can only be if you just have the S. But if you want to be clear, especially for the programmers looking at the code, you can do something like in options or second in options. Then you print an error. Option cannot be used without F first. And we exit. And of course, down here we've got or else if you just want to write the file name without anything. By the way, the order here is really important, because if you, let's say, had an S and an F in the options and you were to write this as the first one, then Python would see the S and would print the error, but you have the S and the F. So in this case, you first check if you've got both of them. If not, you check if you've got the F. If not, you check if you've got the S and you print the error. So this is really, really important. Or if you want to be able to actually write this first, you need to do another check. Like here, you could do something like and not, and then copy this, for example, and then F and first, like that. So here you're using and not. So basically, if you've got the S or second and you don't have either the F or first, then this would be run, and this would be fine even if it were placed at the top here, okay? Because you're double checking that you don't have the F or first. But if you don't write this, the order is really important. And the same thing here, okay? The same thing here, because if you were to use this up here first, and let's say that you've got F and S, Python would see the F and will run this one, and actually it should have run this one, because you've got the F and the S. But if this is the first, this is the first to run. Okay, I hope that makes sense. So let's actually try to run it. So let's try first with just the file name. So file.txt on the file name. And then let's try with the F, S, O. So I think that we've inverted the things here. So this is F and this is F, S. Something like that. We didn't actually change this. So let's save that and let's try to run it again. So F, that is working with the S, error, S cannot be used without the F. And now F, S, and you can just use S, F just like that. That's the same. So everything is working as expected. So this is an amazing method, but if your program is more complex with a lot of options, etc., I will use another method. And you're lucky because I'm planning to release a video on that. If the video have already been published, you can find it on the screen right now. If it's not, it'll be in a few days. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. And I'll see you soon. Bye.